House rule, a matter of urgent public importance. Mr. Speaker, I have a matter that is of national importance, and I want to seek the leave of the House to suspend all our relevant rules so that we can take this matter as urgent and now. I so submit, Mr. Speaker. Our missions abroad are in dire urgent need of intervention because, as we see in the social media and as a committee, disgrace to the nation, and so we want this House to look into this.
Any second on the first leg of the motion that the matter is urgent?
The matter of urgent national importance has moved by my neighbor that we consider it as urgent and of very severe importance. I so second.
Those in support of the motion that this matter is urgent, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Those in support that we suspend rules to take this matter now, please say aye.
Mr. Speaker, I want to move on the urgent need for the House to save our nation the embarrassment emanating from our missions abroad by evaluating the status of these missions and acting promptly. Mr. Speaker, the House notes that the Nigerian Diplomatic Service was established by the Tafawa Balewa-led federal government in 1957, 3 years before Nigeria's independence, to prepare the nation for its foreign representation after independence and to afford her an opportunity to play major roles in the affairs of the globe. It began as the External Affairs Division of the Prime Minister's Office and was under the supervision of a colonial official. Also note that one major rationale in seeking the establishment of diplomatic relations with other countries of the world was and still is the great importance government attaches to maintaining friendly relations with other independent countries of the world. This is hinged on the belief that diplomacy facilitates communication and regular interaction among leaders of states and other entities in the world politics. As such, establishing diplomatic relations with other countries is usually seen as a vital tool for minimizing frictions in interstate relations, promoting the security of state, and establishing some form of international
Honorable
order.
colleagues,
Aware
order.
that another major reason
I believe that Speaker is being distracted.
probably accounts for Nigeria's establishment of diplomatic missions, even right from independence, is the preserved need to use diplomatic exchange as instruments of administrative and economic cooperation with other states. This probably explains why attention is still given to establishing missions in contiguous states and in states within the African and West African sub-region. This is in order to support positive and cooperative efforts for development. Also aware that Nigeria has over 100 of such missions scattered across all parts of the world, housing several staff from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Interior, and others, who are engaged in several aspects of diplomatic, economic, security, and consular duties, and that it is part of the statutory mandate of this House to, among other responsibilities, make annual budgetary provisions for all the aforementioned missions and to undertake oversight functions on them. Observes that for some time now, the entire world has continued to witness several disturbing videos on both the social and traditional media portraying events in some Nigerian missions abroad, and even the ill treatment of Nigerians without a word from their missions. There was an alleged eviction of staff in DR Congo due to what we were told was the non-payment of recertification fee in respect of the property housing the Nigerian mission in that country. Another was the invasion of our mission in Dakar, Senegal, by a group of hoodlums. And another was the breaking of car windscreens and vandalizing of other property belonging to a Nigerian mission by a Nigerian or a group that was said to be aggrieved with services of the mission. Further observes that many of the missions abroad operate from dilapidated buildings and rented properties with long unpaid rents, unpaid utility bills, poor and sometimes with no cash for the ambassadors, High Commissioner, to even fly the official flag of our country in their places of assignment. And worried about the above, in the face of the fact that so much funds are generated as revenue through visa and passport issuance, but none of this goes into the coffers of any of the missions. Concerned that the zero budgetary allocation for capital expenditure for over 100 missions abroad in the last few years may have taken quite a toll on their performance, especially in relation to our economic and citizens' diplomacy, which are the very planks of the present administration's foreign policy agenda, and that this negligence and abandonment of our missions abroad have the capacity to scuttle the good and noble intentions of Mr. President in his laudable efforts to revamp the poor perception that our nation's image had hitherto suffered in the global community over the past years before he took over the reins of governance. Disturbed that the condition of our missions abroad has become a sad caricature of what they should be and a laughingstock in the eyes of the world that pride us as the giant of Africa, and that in the midst of their challenges, these missions can neither attract any foreign direct investment into our nation nor possess what it takes to address the yearnings of the nation's citizens abroad. Mr. Speaker, the House resolves to call on the federal government to allow each of the missions abroad partake of the revenue generated from activities within its domain. This includes visa and passport issuance fees and others. This will no doubt enhance the work environment of the missions and make for a positive change in their outlook. Call on the federal government to adequately provide funds for the missions in order to take care of their capital expenditure every given year, a situation where there is zero budgeting for all the missions in this regard is to expect nothing from these missions. Call on the federal government to encourage the strict implementation of the smart mission concept in all of its missions abroad. I so move, Mr. Speaker, to know about Nigeria only through our missions or what they see of our missions. If our missions are in a bad state, that is how people outside the country will take Nigeria to be. Mr. Speaker, our missions have become an eyesore all over the world. We have been seen in the social media, in the print media, and in televisions all over the world, how our missions have become a disgrace, not only to Nigerians living abroad, but to the country at large. Mr. Speaker, we have experienced so many sad stories, like in the DR Congo, where because of just a stipend to pay for the recertification of the building housing our diplomats, hoodlums came into the mission and threw properties of our diplomats on the street. We have seen in Senegal, Mr. Speaker, where very few hoodlums, about 20, found their way into the mission, destroyed properties, and threaten the life of our ambassador and
Former
other
Chairman
staff
Finance, approach the whip.
in the mission. Mr.
Honorable
Speaker,
Babangida, approach the whip.
our missions have been receiving zero budgetary allocations in terms of their capital. Like in 2019, all our missions, 110 missions, did not receive a dime as capital expenditure. That is why most of our missions abroad cannot pay their rents, and even where the properties belong to Nigeria, you will find our mission houses with leaking roof, with dilapidated structure, and so on. For example, Mr. Speaker, I have received 2 or 3 ambassadors last week who used to hire vehicles or go on lift using vehicles of other missions of other countries before they can attend important meetings, because the missions have no cars attached to them, and there is no budgetary allocation in their capital for them to be able to purchase these cars. That means our missions cannot fly our flags abroad. So the state of our missions, Mr. Speaker, has become so pathetic that it needs urgent attention. If we complain that our citizens are being harassed or embarrassed outside the country, one of the major reasons is because of the way our missions are outside the countries. If an ambassador cannot host business communities and other important dignitaries of other countries to showcase what Nigeria have in terms of agricultural products, in terms of our mineral resources and others, there is no way we will expect investors from outside the country to come into our country to invest. And whether we like it or not, Mr. Speaker, the level of unemployment we have in this country cannot be mopped up directly by the government. We need investors, we need industries to come up to come up in the country to be able to mop up these millions of unemployed Nigerians that are on the street. Just last week, I was in Ogun State at Ota, where we commissioned a floating glass industry. In that free trade zone owned by the Chinese, we have over 50 industries, and they are employing over 10,000 Nigerians. So how do we achieve that? We have to make sure our missions are well packaged so that investors outside will come in and invest. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want us to know, and I want the executive arm of government to know, that as important as infrastructure, as important as security, and as important as other sectors are to the economy, the foreign policy of our country is also very, very important, because we cannot do it on our own. We need people outside to come in and set up their industries so that we can mop up this issue of unemployment and take our economy to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That are allowed by law to spend part of their revenue and remit a certain percentage, NNPC and the rest of them. They are revenue agencies too, but because the way these foreign missions, we've all been there suffering, I think they need a lot of but I agree with you, it has to be by way of law, allowed and not by motion. So I'll put the question. Those who are in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it.